Hello, in this video I wanted to talk about the time that's lost to the abuse and the abuser. I heard a very powerful statement in a TV series and I felt compelled to talk about that time that's lost from the healing or from the toxic relationship and the abuse that took place that steals time. Hello, welcome to the Divorce Sanctuary. I'm Elizabeth Goddard, author of Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. On this channel, I talk about healing from emotional abuse and divorcing both physically and emotionally from the emotional abuser. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you're returning, welcome back and thank you. And thank you to all my new subscribers recently. I'm just so grateful for your support. I started watching a television series called This Is Us. I had actually seen the first series a few years ago. It's about a family who adopt a son who they believe is born on the same day as their triplets, and they lost one of the triplets. It flips backwards and forwards between now, and it covers the childhood and teenage years, and it's the relationships between the children and their parents, and the parents' relationship. It reminds me in a way of how I wrote Finding Lily. My character was sat in a coffee shop and she was picking up the emotions of a young woman who sat opposite her. And these were triggering memories within her, taking her back to the time it happened, recalling what that emotion felt like and what was going on for her at the time, leading to eventual healing. This story, This Is Us, I started watching that. I've watched the whole series now. It leads up to the meeting of Kate Pearson and one of her exes. So Kate is one of the triplets. And so over the series, you witness in previous seasons the emotional abuse that took place and leading her family to follow her after she made a call to her mother. And Kate at the time was 18. And she was in a relationship with a co-worker called Mark. Kate's father had died a few months before. And so she decides to put off going to music college and takes up a job. The couple are travelling to the family's cabin when they have an argument. So that's Kate and Mark. And he stops the car and he makes her get out. And then she walks to a petrol station or a gas station from where she is able to find a phone and make contact with her mother. And then as she's speaking to her mum, the boyfriend turns up. He persuades her that everything's fine, they're fine, and that they can continue on their journey to the cabin, to Kate's family cabin. Feeling something isn't right, her mother asks Kate's brothers to go with her to the cabin, and she cancels her birthday meal. Mark apologises when him and Kate arrive and says, "You know I love you, right? It's snowing and all the roads leading to the cabin are starting to be closed." So as Kate's mother and her brothers start to get nearer, they have to turn back. But they do arrive the next day and they find a cold cabin and Kate wearing gloves. And over a period of time, while they're talking, it transpires that Mark has been asked not to use a mug, which had been their father's. And he was playing with it and he was flipping it backwards and forwards between his hands. And Kate turns and you hear a smash. Accident or deliberate, we don't see. Upset, Kate makes a comment about him being unemployed and he shouts at her. So she decides to go and get some wood. And as she moves to leave the cabin, he makes a comment about her weight. When her family arrive the next day, they find her wearing gloves. And it turns out the gloves are to hide a cut that she's got on her hand. And it's revealed that as she left the cabin to get the wood, he locked her out. And she had to break a window to try and get back in. And it's 20 years later, she's recalling this memory. And she's having a conversation about what happened with her husband. And she reveals the true state of the relationship with Mark and the abuse that took place. And her husband, Toby, can't understand why she's never told him about this guy. When they've spoken about their past before, she's never said a word about it. So after the conversation, Kate jumps onto social media and she manages to track down her ex, and she asks her husband to drive her to the city where he now lives. And as she gets out the car, he's outside having a cigarette, and she approaches and tells him who she is. And then the program cuts to another scene, and it shows that a while after the relationship was over, she went to his apartment, and he believed that she wanted them to get back together again. And you'd also at this point witnessed that Kate had discovered that she was pregnant. Obviously she's only 18 years old, and she was having to make decisions about what to do and hide everything from her family, as they had all been through so much. She was lying to her mother about what she'd done that weekend, and very probably dying inside as she listened to her mother chat away about the weekend she'd spent with Kate's brothers. So, cutting back to the scene, Kate walks towards Mark after introducing herself, and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" And he says, "Okay, sure." And she says, "What do you remember about our relationship? When you look back on it, I mean." And he looks at her and he says, "Really? That's why you're here? To rehash our relationship, our 6-month relationship from 20 years ago? You should forget about it, Mark. Goodbye." And he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. When I look back on it, we were in love. You had a great taste in music, and you were all broken in the right places. And yeah, things got intense at times, but we were kids." And she's still standing half in the road. And she said, "No, I was a kid. You were 24 years old. You're a 24-year-old man." She says, "I was broken. I was grieving. My dad had just died. And I was destroyed and so vulnerable. And you knew it and you liked it." "Okay," he says. She says, "No, I'm not finished. What you did to me and how you held my self-esteem in your hand and then you decided to crush it. That damaged me. For years I swallowed my dreams, my feelings, and a lot of food. Look at me. No, look at me. You need to get this. The time it took me to heal from you stole years from me, and I can't get them back. It took me a while, but I found someone who loves me the way I deserve to be loved. I have a son and a husband. I'm not the one that's broken, you are. You're the one that's broken, Mark. You're the disease. And I'm not carrying it for a moment longer, so I give it back to you. Good luck with it, Mark." And even though it's something that I've known, you know, that the amount of time that gets lost, the years that you can lose to this abuse, it caught me off guard. But I was her cheerleader. I was shouting at her, you know, "You go. Yeah, you tell him." Handing him back the wounds that she'd been carrying for years. That statement was so powerful to me. I started thinking about my own healing journey. And the words that we hear, the statements that are made, they're so powerful. You might remember hearing words and thinking that I didn't say that. Or you might remember recoiling at the language you heard directed at you. You possibly might remember situations where the words that were used, you felt as though you've been physically attacked, or perhaps felt like you've been stabbed in the heart by some of the things that had been said to you. You might have even heard that everybody thinks that you're mad or bipolar or insecure, have low self-esteem, wonder why you're still together, and adds whatever the statement was that you heard. And they might even suggest that other family members have raised concerns about the way you behave. For the emotional abuser, their weapon of choice is words. They use words to devalue you. They use words to coerce you. They'll tell you you're crazy or paranoid when you start to question things, especially their lies. Words were used to belittle you. They may have laughed at you when you say, and then you have to explain what you're trying to say, and you didn't mean it in the way that they've changed your words. Words were used as weapons, not fists. Like a game of chess, they're always looking at the board and planning their next move. They lined you up for the fall, and then they came in and rescued you. And you believe the person that is abusing you is actually there protecting you, and they're not. As children, we're sponges. Everything that's said to us we take on as the truth. Everything we see, we believe is the way things happen. We live in a theta state, which is a hypnotic state. And this is where the programming happens. And it's great if the programming comes from healthy people, but it's not so great if it doesn't. And children can usually scrape by if they had good enough parents. It's the emotional abuse that's experienced in childhood that says it's okay to be treated like this. Your self-esteem was stripped away with words, not fists. And it's probably non-existent. And possibly you believe that you're not worthy of anything. It was that statement that Kate made. It took me years to heal from you. You stole years from me and I can't get them back. Healing the wounds is crucial. It doesn't matter if you're going to see this person ever again or not. They steal so much from you. And one of the hardest parts of dealing with this type of relationship is trying to heal and living in fear of how you're going to survive. And then watching your abuser living their life without any worries. And you can lose years of your life waiting for them to come back, or watching what they're up to, not healing your wounds or living your life. Make sure you ground yourself. It might help to write your story out and look at the pattern and heal the wounds. You need to armor up for a battle. You're fighting for your freedom, your sanity, your sovereignty, and your future. Through my own healing journey, I know the damage emotional abuse leaves on your life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, and how hard it is not only to walk away but to recover from. It was a game and I didn't have the rules, and each time I thought I understood them, they were changed. Emotional abuse is a pattern of behaviour where one person uses fear, humiliation, guilt or manipulation tactics to gain power and control over another. Unlike physical abuse, it often goes unnoticed, and the damage it causes puts you in a state of confusion. You had no idea it was taking place, and like Chinese water torture, it happens very slowly and it turns you crazy. They chipped away at your self-esteem and you began to doubt your own perceptions of reality. The abuser has so many tactics to trap you and to gain power and control over you, your life and your finances. They manipulated you into believing they were protecting you when in fact they were abusing you. The cycle of abuse is made up of the elements of idealization, devaluation and discard. And each element is carried out with precision for the desired results. The chaos is the destruction left behind at the end of the relationship. The abuser walks away without a backward glance, having secured in place their next source of supply. You may be at this point trying to understand what happened. And you might be trying to label the abuser. So your head is spinning with all the information that's out there now. Your abuser is empty inside. And once they've sucked everything out, including your soul, they leave. And you very possibly experienced idealization where you were the center of their world. They told you how amazing you were and showered you with gifts, meals, and days out. And over a period of time, this changed. And suddenly, the things they loved about you were turned against you. The words of idealization became criticism and put-downs. And this was followed by the discard. Temporary at first, they always came back with attention, the attention you got used to. And you sighed with relief. And you may have vowed it would never happen again. They have one goal, and that is about power and control. You will be in their life until you are no longer fit for purpose. That could be a short period of time or a long one. When they've had enough and a shiny new toy appears, off they go. And this is why some people get stuck waiting, because they've always come back. And this is where you can lose years because you're waiting for them to come back. Not only do you lose years with your self-esteem being on the floor and believing all the things they told you, you might believe that they're going to come back. And this doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be with friends, it can be family, it could be at work, dare I say governments and other corporations. And trauma bond was designed to trap you. It has invisible chains that hold you in a relationship where you are unable to move or escape. You are lured there with fakery and then held there in an invisible prison. They have the key, but they will never give it to you. And not even at the end of the relationship. Whilst there is still breath in your body, you still have the ability of providing them with a source of supply. It might not be the same quality, but if they get bored, they can play with you like a cat would play with a dead mouse. And if you've ever seen a cat with a mouse, you will have noticed that they tap it until they get a response. And in the abuser's world, this is called hoovering. You might receive a message just checking you're okay, that they realise they can't live without you, that they're hurting, they need you, they don't want you going through this alone. And the list goes on. What have you been told? Emotional abuse, in my mind, is worse than physical abuse because you don't know it's going on. You might see the red flags, but you were told to write them off with an explanation, and then you're knee deep in quicksand. They put you in a false sense of security, and you may never have experienced the attention to this level. And then they move on, and what they found amazing about you, they then criticise you for, and your red flags might go up, but you're told that you're too sensitive, it wasn't meant like that. Oh, they really were only joking. And you believe them because you want to. And because they're so very convincing, and they idolise you again, and you like it. And that niggling feeling in the pit of your stomach is turned off, and you drop down a level where the quicksand was at your ankles, it's now at your knees. The trauma bond is what's holding you there. The trauma bond is what hurts. The trauma bond is what makes it so hard not to be able to move on, and you will get no closure. Bonding is a process that makes people more important to each other. We develop bonds for survival. It's the foundation of our attachment. It's the very strong connection, and it strengthens when we spend time with someone, when we make love to them, when we have children together. But it's used by the emotional abuser or the toxic person to enable them to gain power and control over you. Trauma bonding made it hard to enforce boundaries. And this is why it's so painful to stay away from them. After getting you addicted to oxytocin and dopamine through the love bombing, the idealization, they started to introduce situations that release your stress hormones. And this is done with the slight put downs and creating drama, manufacturing emotions. When they threatened your safety through their bad behavior, you turn to them for help and protection. You rationalised their behaviour, believing they cared for you. And this created further bonding, which is the reason that you felt so connected to them. So when the relationship finished, your stress levels are so high, you experience fear, and you can't imagine life without them. On the other hand, they play victim, and you very likely believe this is all your fault, and the pain that you're in now runs so deep it goes into your soul, and it continues after the relationship. And you might find you're experiencing paranoia, and then there's the smear campaign, which is designed to ensure the abuser looks like the victim. So they create stories about the terrible things you allegedly did. They want to punish you. And as they can't take responsibility, you were the problem. Smear campaigns can actually start before the final discard, and they can involve mutual friends, members of your family, even your children. You need to recognise and acknowledge who they are and what they have done. If you're stuck believing this is your fault, then you're still trapped by the trauma bond. If you're constantly chasing them, or they're not letting you go, it could take you years to wake up and realise how much of your life that you've lost. The emotional abuser is the ultimate thief. If it isn't nailed down, they'll take it. And then at the end of the relationship, they keep you dangling and they steal years of your life. So stop right now. You can do something about it today. You can claim back your life. Maybe and if only are words that keep you stuck. If only you could see what they do. Maybe today is the start of your journey. Don't feel you need to do what Kate did and track them back down if it was from years ago and tell them that they are broken. Find your wounds and heal them, and then go and live your best life. Never think about them again. For me, it was when Kate said, the time it took for me to heal, you stole years from me and I can't get them back. That really made me think about my journey. I was really lucky that someone had said to me right at the beginning, it will take as long as it takes. Don't put a time limit on it. And I didn't. But I did hear from others that I should really be over this by now. I tried so desperately to move on and failed because the wounds were so deep. I was really lucky that I'd worked with trauma and I was able to help myself, and it helped me align to helping others and heal their wounds. I felt like Kate, that I had lost years. I'd had years stolen from me that I could never get back. But I had to reconcile these emotions and forgive myself and the emotions that I was feeling. Acknowledging this happened and digging deeper and healing those wounds. And I hope that's something that you're able to give yourself, because you will never get closure and the trauma bond will keep you trapped. I hope you found this useful. If you'd like to find out more ways of working with me, I'll put the link to my website below in the description box, along with the links to both my books, Finding Lily and the A to Z of Emotional Abuse. I'll also put the links to both my free workbooks, Self-Care is Vital and Turn Broken into Your Superpower. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and I'm sending you loads and loads and loads of love.